This is my full breakdown of Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 255. We got a lot of crazy new information. We're gonna be talking about that and what it means, as well as just predicting what's gonna happen in the next few chapters. And I'm actually feeling very confident about some of these predictions. And finally, the thing I'm really excited to talk about is who is the physically strongest character in the entire series. We might actually have a new strongest character. In this chapter, it looked like Sukuna was cornered and he was getting kind of destroyed. Yuji was back and Maki was back like we predicted. But I almost wish Maki had stayed down, because I think she would have been lucky to get away with only a black flash. We've definitely seen Sukuna do worse things to people. And I'm a bit of a Maki fan, so I definitely don't want to see that happen. As for Yuji, it's great to see Yuji back, and I think this is going to be a bit of a black flash showdown between him and Sukuna. But also another very interesting thing is we have probably the three physically strongest characters going up against Sukuna here. And I really do wonder who is stronger physically speaking, Maki, Yuji, or Miguel. And I think in the end of this chapter we get an answer on who is the physically strongest character in the entire series. And I think it's quite shocking. I always thought that when Gojo and Sukuna are using their reinforcements, even physically they are the two strongest characters. Maybe even stronger than Toji and Maki. But the end of this chapter just made it so complicated. But let's go through the chapter and we're gonna get to that part. So the chapter immediately starts off by Sukuna stating that saving that boy must be the curse technique of one of these two. And to be honest, I don't really remember this guy who has hearts on his chest. And his curse technique, I just don't remember it at all. But yeah, it seems that they kind of saved Kusakabe as well. His wound doesn't look that lethal and he looks like he's still looking around, so I think Kusakabe is still fine. But he's definitely out of the fight for now, which is good for him that he gets away with just a wound like that. And you know, there's been a lot of flashbacks in the recent chapters. I don't know how to feel about it, but it seems like a lot of people are complaining about all these flashbacks we're getting. And I think we're seeing Yuta's time in Africa here. I don't know at which point Yuta is trying to recruit Miguel to come to fight Sukuna. And by the way, for the record, Miguel is saying that no way am I going to fight an opponent who might be able to defeat Satoru Gojo. I think this is probably during that month when Gojo just got released from the prison realm. They had like a month to train and find out a way to defeat Sukuna. And Miguel here is still adamant that even if some Godzilla-like cursed spirit in the Tengen merger would come to attack his homeland, he would prefer that over fighting Sukuna. So this really just shows what kind of aura Sukuna has, that the Tengen merger is preferred over fighting Sukuna. And I think, by the way, the Tengen merger is going to be stronger than Sukuna. I feel like as a final villain-like thing, it will be pretty weird if it wouldn't be. And I kind of see it being like a Madara Kaguya kind of thing, where Madara is like the main cool badass villain, but then Kaguya just comes up and scales up the power but isn't necessarily as cool of a villain. Unless Sukuna somehow like merges himself with the merger, although I doubt that, since I think Sukuna just wants to fight it. Even though we have definitely seen Sukuna like jump into other people's bodies and try to make their power his. The only one who I could see having put like his consciousness into the merger is Kenjaku. I think Kenjaku definitely gonna do something, especially since his body is just a brain. I'm still quite confident that a character like Kenjaku is not going to end in some meme fight against Takaba. So I think Kenjaku might have still some plan with that merger. Once it's activated, I think Kenjaku is going to do something with the merger still. Although I could be wrong. I don't know if we're going to get this mindless, monstrous Godzilla-like thing that just has no personality, no character. It's not really like Kenjaku or Sukuna. So basically it's just like a force of nature or like a calamity itself. I feel like it would be better to see Kenjaku controlling it somehow. And maybe with Yuji and everybody else fighting it, we might actually get some closure when Yuji confronts Kenjaku for being his mom and all that stuff. Like, we didn't really get Yuji talking about it in any way with Kenjaku. So I definitely feel like we need more interaction between Yuji, Kenjaku, and maybe Choso. Even though I was rooting for Gojo to win against Sukuna, I'm still enjoying the series, and kind of excited to see what's gonna happen because it's so unpredictable. But yeah, Miguel is here saying that aren't Japanese people supposed to be polite? Like, shouldn't Gojo be here himself just pleading with his head bowed for me to come and help in this thing that might cost me my life? And then Yuta is just saying, should I get down and beg instead? So they're trying really, really hard to recruit Miguel to the point where even Yuta is willing to get on his knees and beg, which is kind of crazy. But I really just love Yuta. He's like, I'm not even mad, you know, like Yuta kind of understands where Miguel is coming from. Like, Miguel apparently has to look after his brothers, so he can't just go out there and risk his life like that. And I just feel like Miguel is so not going to survive. I don't know, I just have this feeling. And then Miguel and this guy with hearts on his chest start talking about Suguru Gito and how they should do this for Suguru Gito. And eventually he does kind of convince Miguel to come. And then this dude says that they're gonna make Suguru Gito proud in heaven if they give everything to this fight and this cause. But then Miguel immediately replies that surely Suguru Gito is in hell. And this is actually quite interesting because, like, if you really have a chance to die and you really needed to survive for your homeland, for your brothers, the fact that you could change your mind just to make a guy who is dead proud is pretty weird to me. Like, shouldn't you fight for the living rather than the dead? Especially if they're in hell as well. But I don't know, would Suguru Gito be in hell? He did kill a lot of innocent people. But I come to think about it though, if I was Miguel or even one of these guys, no chance I'm fighting Sukuna, unless maybe I'm Satoru Gojo. I'm not really built like Kashima where I want that smoke even if I know I may not survive. Like, nah, screw that. A fight is not that sweet, especially fighting a monster like Sukuna. And finally, Miguel says that he has conditions. He will only fight if Satoru Gojo and Yuta Okocho have been defeated and Sukuna can no longer use his domain, which are reasonable conditions. However, as we'll see at the end of this chapter, it's looking really bad because I think Sukuna is 1 or 2 chapters away from being back to full power and having his domain and his reverse curse technique as well. Though I'm not surprised, I've been predicting for a long time that Sukuna has to get back to full power. Otherwise, whoever defeats Sukuna didn't defeat Sukuna at his best, so Sukuna will still go down as the GOAT, as the strongest, and his ideals will prevail. So that's why Sukuna has to get back to full power, whether it's Yuji who defeats him, or then we get a Gojo comeback, or whoever else might do it. It needs to be Sukuna at his best. We see Miguel and this new dude are assessing Sukuna's injuries. They're like, he's missing an arm, and obviously his domain is inactive, as well as his reverse curse technique, and he's also missing 2 arms, and his heart hasn't healed yet. And Miguel has this smug look on his face that I almost feel bad. And he's like, they left us the most delicious part, finishing Sukuna off. After a brief skirmish, where this new dude tries out his hand technique on Sukuna, and it's explained to us a little bit how it works, although I don't think it's that relevant because this guy is going to get bodied soon. I thought in the start that he's the one who saved Uyi Uyi with his hand technique, though after Uyi Uyi was saved, we saw him in Miguel's arms, like Miguel was carrying him, meaning Miguel just has some insane speed to be able to just pick him up and take him on the roof right in front of Sukuna like that. They also explain Miguel's curse technique, how it amps his physical stats. So basically he's insanely athletic and he can dance with good rhythm. Pretty stereotypical, but we move on. This is actually one of the crazier feats in the series. Gojo was immediately able to tell Miguel's curse technique just by looking at him, and still wasn't able to see the world-cutting dismantle coming, though apparently Sukuna used some kind of binding vow in order to use it against Gojo. It seems like you could just do a binding vow whenever you want for fun with no consequences. It's not told to us what binding vow he did because it doesn't matter and it doesn't inconvenience him in any way, seemingly. But the most shocking thing here is, apparently, in terms of just pure physical strength, Miguel is stronger than Gojo. And that is insane. I don't know if Toji would have been stronger than Gojo, just physically speaking. And I'm talking about, obviously, Gojo and Miguel use cursed energy reinforcement. Because Gojo and Sukuna were practically similar in terms of power, and Gojo was slightly faster when they were both using their reinforcements. So right now, I expect Miguel to actually be stronger than Sukuna physically. And yeah, obviously it also said that Gojo would have won because of his basically infinite cursed energy. But I am shocked that Miguel is this physically strong. It's unbelievable. So we cut to seeing Miguel and Sukuna fighting hand to hand, and then we see Choso shooting Sukuna from the back. Yuji is back in, Maki is also back. So all of a sudden, Sukuna is getting kind of destroyed and he's back in the corner. And this is quite crazy considering that Sukuna doesn't even have his heart, that he's able to just take on all these guys. I have no idea how he's doing it. We also get further explanation that Sukuna has to use the same hand sign he does for Malevolent Shrine for his world dissecting slash. And the trajectory of the technique must be specified by his palm. So basically he points to the place he's going to cut, and this is why it's much easier to dodge it or like know when it's coming and deal with it. So it's not really like a omnipotent technique. And if Gojo was to come back, assuming Sukuna can't just spam binding vows forever, Gojo would be able to deal with it as well. Though I still feel like Gojo should have known. Literally, Maharaga even used that world cutting slash on Gojo, and I assume when Gojo was using Infinity as well. And Gojo still didn't adapt to it or like expect it. Then again, it happened off screen, so we have no idea what happened really. Though I was wrong about one thing, I thought that technique couldn't really be healed. But when I went back and I read the chapter when Maharaga used the technique for the first time against Gojo, Gojo was able to heal that arm in basically the next chapter. So it can definitely be healed, and Yuta can also be healed and survive that slash he took from Sukuna. Especially if Rika can use reverse curse technique. I think I still maintain that there's really nothing like these epic Jujutsu Kaisen fights. Like just the energy in these fights is insane, and it always just feels like a crazy war. Like Maki is back here looking kind of unhinged and just ready to get revenge on Sukuna. And I think she's the one who immediately cuts off Sukuna's arm. So now he should definitely not be able to use that world cutting slash. Once again, it looks like it's over for Sukuna. No heart, no world cutting slash, no arms. Yuji desperately screaming that it's all coming together. Everyone's hard work and sacrifice all comes down to this moment. But then Sukuna just annihilates the guy with the heart on his chest with a crazy black flash. And even the commentator immediately starts to explain to us that Gojo Satoru restored his lost reverse curse technique output by landing his second black flash. Now, in the case of the king of curses, ... So it's basically Sukuna has got his reverse curse technique back. And now that he's on a roll, like hitting black flashes is going to be so easy for him, so easy. He's gonna hit a third one and he's gonna go back to full power. And this basically means that Sukuna is going to even get more amped up by his second flash than Gojo was. So it's entirely possible Sukuna gets back to full power even after only 2 black flashes. Which would mean that he would potentially get his domain back as well. Overall, this chapter was just unbelievably insane. And surprisingly, it was a lot more enjoyable than the spoilers. Many times when I read the spoilers and go to the chapter, it's like very similar. But this full chapter just hit different. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one. And please drop a sub or like if you enjoy the video.